This is something I think more Americans should just be aware of, that there is a almost countercultural, counter-institutional grassroots movement of students rising up, fighting back against really what has become a liberal collectivist dominance of higher education and the younger generation. And it's a very exciting story to really see this uptick, and we're a very lucky organization to be part of, I think, going to be a historic rising up of the millennial generation against governmental power. I always felt that in order to engage young people, you have to be more innovative, more culturally relevant. Not just me, but many people on our team. And so when I went to some of these youth engagement seminars or policy briefings during the first couple months of our organization, I saw very substantive, very factual arguments around charts and data and why Medicare is going to go bankrupt in 8 years. And I said, I don't care. Tell me, how you're going to keep my attention span for more than a minute, and then tell me how you're going to be able to win the argument culturally beyond that. The point being is we're not going to win on just the better charts, better think tanks. We have the best think tanks in the world. AEI's tremendous heritage, they're the best. However, we're talking with a generation that many of whom don't know the difference between Medicare, Medicaid, FICA. It's all just a bunch of words to them. But they can understand skepticism of big government. They can connect it with already, I would say, cultural beliefs or ideas that they hold. So whether it be skepticism of big power by relating it to the Hunger Games, whether it be the corruption inherently held in our governmental system in House of Cards, whether it be the feudalistic type power struggle that goes on in Game of Thrones, and connecting these ideas and principles through things that young people already have experienced in a very personal manner. And the left has been able to do this incredibly effective. So let's use Avatar as an example. Avatar is arguably the most effective vehicle for the message of climate change in the last 5 years. They have been able to use Avatar as, this is what's going to happen if all those evil capitalists take over. The Earth is going to be terrible, and we're going to have to find some other Earth, and then the capitalists will come back and kill all the blue people. And for young people, it's now used as curriculum. It's used as, it's seen by billions of people worldwide, and you see politicians reference it here and there, and the left has really built this kind of cohort around it. But I think that, we on our side, conservatives, free market believers, we don't always make those connections towards, vehicles, I think, that could advance our cause in the same manner.
So I see one of your signs, big government sucks. Why does big government suck?
Oh, for many different reasons, and I get some pushback from some people saying, oh, you can't use words like that. I say, oh, I'm being very nice when I say it that way. Look, besides all the cliches and platitudes, just to talk in plain speaking terms, I think big government is the number one threat towards my generation's prosperity and freedom in the future. I think our generation has incredible potential to be the most innovative, entrepreneurial, and successful generation, but time and time again I'm seeing government regulation, bureaucracy, unfair rules written for people that can afford platoons of lobbyists get in the way of that prosperity. Whether it be an exploding national debt that is going to be taxation of tomorrow, whether it be departments that people don't even know what they do, such as Department of Commerce, Department of this, Department of that, that have exploding platoons of bureaucrats that are going to come after small businessmen and women that are trying to advance the betterment of their business or their community or then their families life. So I think besides all the cliches, this and this, I see on a first-hand basis a generation of young entrepreneurs, of business people, of graduates that want to live a better life. But I see time and time again burdensome bureaucracy and bad policy and the growth of government being the number one barrier to that future.
The culture of campuses right now, we see mattress girl, we see triggering issues and microaggressions and ideological warfare going on and silencing of people with voices like yours. What are you seeing out there?
Sure.
What is your mission and how do you break through it?
Sure. So the liberal professors on campus are very tolerant as long as you hold their beliefs. I have never seen a cohort of people in power have such intolerance to constitutional, American, patriotic, free market, capitalistic beliefs. And obviously I've only lived, for 21 years, but I'm so alarmed by not just the power that they wield, but the influence that they demonstrate, and then also how they are able to affect, young minds, I think, for the worse. Because they're not just, teaching propaganda and indoctrinating young people. That's one thing. But they're also teaching a doctrine that if someone else holds a belief differently than you, so if someone believes capitalism is a good thing, if someone believes that America is truly the best country in the history of the world, they're not just wrong, they're evil. And I think those are two completely different lines. So the indoctrination of old in the 70s and 80s, they would do it much more in a kind of free flow of ideas, and they'll eventually lead young people to say, oh, I love the world, so therefore I'm a Democrat. Whereas now, young people are now led to the conclusion, I love the world, therefore I hate Republicans and I hate conservatives, and everything that comes to progress is because of the lack, because they're in power, because of them. I think it's a completely different argument that is being made. So what we're doing is, we have membership across the country, and we have chapters around over, we have over 220 of our own chapters, and our alliance partners and our staff are over 1,000 campuses nationwide. One of our initiatives is to be able to empower young people to effectively debate and push back against these professors and teachers. We have a booklet and a campaign called How to Debate Your Teacher and Win. For whatever reason, teachers don't like it. I'm still trying to figure out why. We published another online resource called Indoctrination Prevention, 10 ways college professors indoctrinate our youth and how to fight back against it. And really what that whole campaign was about is diving into the real 10 steps professors take over a couple semesters to get young people away from the traditional American values they were raised around. And just so, very quickly, they make young people feel skeptical of their upbringing, ashamed of being an American, compelled for redefinition. And then also they argue that what we have right now is really, really bad. And they look at just very small, minute atrocities in, I think, the tapestry of, wonder of America. And they say, because of this, we must have a revolution, we must have X, Y, and Z, and then young people feel in their youthful exuberance, yes, we need complete social redefinition of classes and economic status, and by these vehicles. And of course, the last and final thing, these professors hold incredible influence, not just through the grade leveraging, but also they're doctors, and they're how could they be wrong? And they pontificate, and they publish, and they speak with such authority. And for a young 18 or 19-year-old that comes into that environment that otherwise had a high school environment that was much different than that of a college, indoctrination is almost too easy for these very, very liberal professors, deans, and institutions that are not not teaching students how to think, but really what to think and how to reject people that think differently.
Okay, so what do your people do when they're faced with hostility as they grow up a new entity on with your organization?
So we've had many different encounters at Broward College down in southern Florida. We had a cop try to arrest us for doing voter registration, which was interesting. We recorded that and it went nationally. Not every college are we met with hostility. Some have good student governments, but not all. There are many that are incredibly antagonistic, not just towards our belief structure and our organization, but just towards any sort of organization that comes on campus that might differentiate from that of the university president and their little nucleus team that controls the agenda on campus. So ways that we try to fight back are not just through an institutional side, but we try to use the public airwaves. Websites like the Daily Caller and Campus Reform, Drudge Report have been wonderful at pushing and exposing this. And a lot of times the administration will back away when they find their name or their college on a national website, and they're getting calls and emails and very heated inquiries of why X, Y, and Z is not allowed to have a booth or a table or a chapter on campus. So I think the birth of digital media has really offered a safer environment for us to be able to expose a lot of these intolerances of liberals on campus. It amazes me to this day how many alums that agree what we believe in, constitutional free market, that still write huge checks to these universities. And even though that the professors are teaching doctrine that is antithetical towards the beliefs and values that they express on a daily basis, that are antithetical towards the entire belief that they go about in growing their business or their enterprise. And so what I tell people is stop giving money to your alma mater unless you went to Hillsdale or Grove City or King's College in New York City. And I say that somewhat kiddingly. Or if you're going to give and you're in the position to give generously, charter a professor that you have picked, or get together with, let's say you went to University of Michigan, and there are a lot of organizations that are starting to do this. The Koch world is doing a lot of this as well, effectively. Try to University of Michigan, get together with 10 of your graduates, and you want to donate generously. Say, we're all 10 of us are going to commission a free enterprise school, and we're going to pick the professor, we're going to oversee it. If you write these blank checks to the universities, it's just, number one, it's going to go to the endowment, which really uses just leverage to continue an agenda of whoever controls it. And it's going to be liberals and collectivists that do that. But I think the funding structure, if you can at least put a dent in that, you're going to have some sort of free market, I hope, pressure for them to not continue this indoctrination and propaganda stream as per usual.
Talk about why you've picked the issues you've picked and what do you avoid
Sure.
in the whole.
So since our founding, we completely avoid social issues. We don't talk about gay marriage or abortion or any of that. And people ask, well, why is that? And I say, quite frankly, when I wanted to start this organization, and I saw a lot of the just cursory polling that my high school political science department did, almost 70 or 80% of my high school graduating class said they supported same-sex marriage. I thought, wow, that's almost overwhelming. And when I talked to these young people, and I know a lot of them that took the poll, I said, well, how do you identify politically? Oh, I'm a Democrat because I believe in gay marriage and abortion. I said, hold on, there's about 15 other issues that are very, very important to the broader scheme of governance and our lifestyle in general. But they only looked at politics through the prism of those two issues. So if we had this crazy idea, and it's not a unique idea, many organizations do it, and also political enterprises ever since. What if we remove those from the conversation and say those are important, but we're not going to engage in that conversation? Let's talk about free markets, limiting government, skepticism of big governmental power, and fiscal responsibility. And we saw broad-based appeal, acceptance of those ideas and values, a more receptive audience of that conversation. And because of that, talking about those particular issues, you can engage a generation that otherwise would have identified as a liberal or a Democrat or someone not on our side, and then say, well, there's about 20 other issues here that we have to talk about. I guarantee about 16 of them resonate with you. And that would be the first time they ever heard that, because they were told then the liberals want it this way. You believe in gay marriage, you must be a Democrat, no other issue, that's it. And they've actually been able to win over a lot of people based on that. But they don't win the argument on taxes, on limiting government, on well-run government, on balancing budgets, on creating. That's not an argument they want to have. They're always trying to steer it away back to abortion and gay marriage. And we're trying to go where we think the liberals are weakest, which is economic freedom, limiting government, and balancing budgets and things like that.
You haven't brought up national security, and yet young people are going to war for our country, and these issues are heating up around the world. So why not national security too? Yeah,
it's an incredibly important issue, and so we tie one of our passionate issues into a national security realm. So I'll give kind of a two-pronged answer. Number one, we think the most effective change is targeted change. So we don't want to tackle all these issues. Just the fiscal realm is one that we think we can be most effective in. However, I can make a very compelling argument that the national debt is one of our greatest foreign policy liabilities and national security liabilities. And we do make that argument that as our national debt accumulates, we become succumbed and we can be leveraged by foreign governments and entities, and that we lose our autonomy and national, I would say, kind of liberty and freedom to make decisions, because we're going to have a large part of our debt obligated to another government or entity. So we do make that, but in regards to ISIS and these other foreign policy matters, to a lot of young people, it's number one, they don't really care, unfortunately. The ones that do, they don't understand it completely, And the ones that do care and sort of understand it, they don't really see the whole picture. And we feel that it's such a complex and intricate issue. And really, there isn't as clear defined lines as there used to be of what stance is here and what stance is there. But let's take an issue, economic freedom, balancing the budget. I think it's so clear to see the conservative policy stance and let's take the state by state basis, what states are doing well under conservative governance and policies and issues versus liberal, whereas national security and foreign policy is incredibly intricate, complex, and especially to our audience, we're trying to win the soundbite war in kind of the Twitter sphere, the 140 characters or less. We see success in staying to those type of issues.
What makes America exceptional to you, Charlie?
Yeah, I've done a lot of thinking, and what I love about what I get to do is I get to travel the country and meet incredible entrepreneurs and business people and learn their stories. Anyone from Mary and Dick Cabela, who started their enterprise in Sidney, Nebraska, where you're from, a small little town of 2,000 people in southwest Nebraska, and they grew that little hardware store into over 180 megaplexes nationwide. Or whether it's seeing and learning the story from Bernie Marcus's mouth of Home Depot, where he was kind of a rugged entrepreneur, never really made it big until he hit 51, 52, and he came up with this crazy idea for distribution plants, and then he grew Home Depot into a multinational idea that has improved the lives of millions of people. So from what I have seen firsthand, what makes America exceptional is that people can succeed greater here than in any other country nationwide, but also from our founding and chartering documents and philosophy is that we do not get our rights or our idea of existence from a bureaucracy or from a government or an elected official, but from God. And that's truly the core existence of why we're here and what we believe. And I think every one of our laws and our legislation, at least from an early standpoint, reflected that. And obviously we've kind of drifted away because the new power dominance, what they are trying to create and what they're trying to grow is getting farther and farther away from that belief that we do not have to succumb to government for our existence, but we can handle that directly, through our God or through our family and through our own, personal and individual liberty. And traveling to Europe and being able to travel, and I see the difference of what a European entrepreneur, has to go through the taxes, regulation, and almost the pessimistic outlook they have towards their country, their environment, and their success. And what in America that still exists, it's still a great country. People are very pessimistic. I think that we have a lot to be excited about and proud of, and in my opinion, it's very much worth fighting for.
Okay, and on the campus, who are your competitors, or who's on the scene with you trying to win the hearts and minds of young people on the left and the right?
Sure. Amongst the left, MoveOn.org has an incredible atmosphere, an incredible network on college campuses through a lot of their offshoot and alliance organizations, whether it be the Sierra Club, Planned Parenthood. Recently, we have seen an incredible expansion amongst Hillary for America, which now has hundreds of full-time field organizers that have just flooded the campuses and are really occupying them, doing voter registration, collecting immense amounts of data, handing out, pro-Hillary, I like to call it propaganda, and it really is.
Okay, what's coming up for you guys?
So this summer we have many exciting initiatives, including our Young Women's Leadership Summit, our Young Latino Liberty Summit, and our High School Activist Conference, as well as our staff training. So our three conferences that we have decided to engage in, and they're not conferences, but they're really boot camps and activist type trainings, have really never been done in a demographic specific way in the movement. So take, for example, our Young Women's Leadership Summit. We had tons of applications nationwide, more than we could ever process or bring into this particular activist training or conference. So these are for our top 125 to 150, depending on the final number that we land on. Young women campus organizers from across the country, from almost 37 different states represented. And the reason we're doing this conference is, quite frankly, our best organizers and our best members and chapter leaders on campus are usually young women. And I've monitored and kind of observed that the Republican conservative atmosphere is incredibly difficult for an 18 or 19-year-old young female to break into. It's very male dominated. And there have not been conferences or networks for them to be able to get grassroots type training, education, or then to be able to be more effective organizers on campus. So you take the bad guys, for example, the liberals, they have Emily's List and Organizing for Action and these other type training seminars that are just for young women. But what are we doing for ours, to train them and give them reinforcement? So I'm incredibly excited about that. Then we have our Young Latino Leadership Summit for our top 60, hopefully get up to 75, bilingual, Latino surname campus organizers from across the country. Again, a demographic that conservatives have. I hear it all the time. I go everywhere to Tea Party meetings and Republic. Oh, we got to do something to engage Latinos. So I was kind of tired of hearing it. So we wanted to do something actually actively about it. And then the High School Activist Conference, we're doing that conference in mind. I thought, boy, when I was a junior in high school, what would I have benefited from? And I would have benefited from an activist conference that was focused solely on how to better defend your beliefs in a high school atmosphere, how to start a high school group, and then once you get into college, what are the steps you can take? Our High School Activist Conference is pretty much designed around the idea that we need a farm team, to use a baseball analogy, that we need to start growing our bench so that when these students hit their freshman year in college, it's not their first year of activism, it's their third or fourth year of activism, and they are already seniors and veterans, so that when they're a sophomore in college, they know absolutely how to run a group, how to grow it, how to have influence, register voters, collect data, and things of that nature. Then, of course, we're adding, I think, 28 people to our full-time staff, which will bring 40 to our staff of just full-time campus organizers that will service a region or a certain amount of schools, 15 to 20 schools in some areas, and where they wake up every single day and they do the God's work of kind of the clipboard and tennis shoes type of engagement that is needed for us to be successful.
How can people help you?
So, if there's a young person watching this and they want to get involved or engage with the work that we're doing, they can visit turningpointusa.net, and there's 8 or 9 different buttons they could push to get actively involved, and you'll get an email within 24 hours, some of the quickest turnaround time in the movement, even on weekends. Or if people are in the position of supporting, we are a 501c3. As everyone knows, money makes this thing all go around, and they can pitch into our efforts.
Turning Point USA, where do you see this organization being in 5 years from now?
We've only been around for 3 years, but hopefully continuing to play a role in re-energizing, reorganizing, and kind of re-enchanting a generation around these ideas. And bigger, broader, and better are the 3 words that I use. We're always improving our outreach mechanisms. We have a very enthusiastic belief in grassroots organizing. We feel that over the last couple years there's been a heavy focus on TV ads and digital media and billboards and all these sorts of things, but not as much focus on grassroots community organizing, which is what Obama for America and MoveOn.org and OFA, the DNC, they've done very, very well. And what the void that we're trying to fill is, how do we get better at the clipboard and tennis shoes type of work, the voter registration, the data collection, that sort of arena. And I think over the next 5 years we're just going to continue to perfect that model and get more and more young people to go through the process of grassroots type organizing, and then be able to amplify their voice beyond that. And it's going to be an exciting journey.